Welcome to another edition of Technology and Things.
What's going on with this today? What's the big deal about privacy?
Privacy risk management just got exponentially more important.
They've got a lot of respect for the importance of protecting stakeholder data and systems.
How do they have a conversation in a language that both of those teams can understand?
Got me about halfway there towards disagreeing with it.
I wanted to see a fight.
Never is somebody saying, we are trying to improve our customer experience through whatever the business goal is. And that's the problem.
CIOs become the nucleus of the organization, and it's a very exciting time.
I'm just a jinx every time. I am a jinx.
What is that better?
I can hear you now, and I think I'm just a jinx, guys. I think that's just what it is.
You know, we were chatting about this. I think on our first episode with you, I think it was our first remote interview.
I think so. I think so, because it was right after, as things were starting to get interesting.
And we ended up doing a whole ton of interviews after that over, Zoom, of course. But that was the first one. And so now we're doing the first one actually in our mobile studio.
I love being the QA tester. Make it happen. I like it.
So Jeffrey just walked in here about 5 minutes ago. And so we're always on the cutting edge of trying something new.
I literally walked in the back of the van.
Yeah. So we have a mobile studio now, which we started working on in July of last year. And
very cool.
And so we're still working out the kinks. There's a lot of technology in here, and a lot of wires and a lot of microphones, and
it's pretty impressive,
and video, but it's gonna be fun.
Well, I mean, this way you can go do these things and broadcast from conferences and stuff when everybody's vaccinated. That's pretty great.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole idea, is that we'll be able to take it, to events. We'll be able to do customer events. We'll be able to go, because right now when we were doing interviews at a customer site, it's like we got to bring all this gear, set it up in a conference room. You don't know what the audio is going to be like. It's sort of unnerving, setting everything up and then doing an interview 5 minutes later. It's not the best.
Right.
And now you have more control over that, which is
exactly
great.
Now it's like, hey, just come into our van, which sounds a little weird, but
Doesn't everyone have a podcast van?
I don't think. I think we're on the cutting edge here with the.
I definitely think the Mission Impossible vibes you can lean into that side of things.
Yeah,
like
if we needed to go somewhere right now, we could.
All we need now is a NFT artwork, and we would be.
I don't know, man. That drives up electricity costs for a lot of people. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it's true, but I saw, I think on Twitter, the actual fossil fuel consumption of generating an NFT is just enormous.
Are we talking about the same thing?
We're talking about if we're talking about the non-fungible things that are part of Ethereum cryptocurrency. Yeah. Apparently, and I could be wrong about this. Let me own that this is me reading stuff across Twitter over time. But I did a little bit of Googling, and my understanding is they require the generation of a just exorbitant amount of electricity to create.
An NFT is a different crypto token than any other.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Well, but as it is, Bitcoin and stuff is consuming a ridiculous amount of electricity. So I'm sorry.
Are people still mining Bitcoin? I thought it was all mined out.
Well, I don't know if people are. There's a lot of fun gray market stuff that happens in other economies around the world.
Gotcha.
So what's been going on with you, Evan? It's been a year.
It has been. We've been, we've been doing a lot of working from home, which sort of I've been doing for a long time. So that's been, that I came into this with all the advantages of knowing how to do this, and our team was all remote. So we kind of had that advantage, but it has been very, very busy. That's one of the things, right? With the last year is the number of companies who were in the cloud and remote work space, their work just exploded.
Yeah.
And, the back end for a lot of these systems are databases. At some point, it is data in columns and rows on a disk that's running all this stuff. And so, yeah, our business has been very, very busy in good ways. And we really have seen our work in the cloud space with Kubernetes and things like that just grow leaps and bounds. Postgres as an embedded database for a lot of cloud-based apps and solutions has grown leaps and bounds. So it's been a busy year. It's been a fun year.
That's awesome.
It's very good to hear.
Yeah, you guys too. Things seem to be going pretty well for you. Your shows certainly have gone wide. A lot of security stuff I like hearing. That's good to hear considering the last 12 months.
It's almost turned into a security show. You go wherever the guests, that we get, and we kind of go wherever we go.
Where the stories are, right.
And so it turns out security is a sort of a hot topic.
It's a hot topic for us too. It is very interesting seeing the number of sites who are asking about how to secure data in place and things like that, which I would never have really expected before. So it's definitely gone a lot deeper into organizations' mentalities. And the good news is there are a lot of bells and whistles for Postgres that allow that. And so when, the government comes out with a recommendation that everyone needs to do TLS everywhere, which of course they do. That's common sense, but it's nice to see the government actually say that and companies paying attention to it. It's already been an embedded feature of Postgres for a long, long time. And there's lots of different ways to do it. And my company, Crunchy Data, we were one of the co-authors of the STIG, which I don't know if you guys are at all in the government security side of things, but that's a secure technical implementation guide that we co-authored with DISA for Postgres. And we wrote the original Postgres STIG for Postgres 9.4, 9.5, 9.3, something like that, years ago. And now it's been updated. And so finally back in January, an updated STIG got published because there were so many things that have changed in computing since the original one that there was no accounting for how you implement Postgres securely in virtual machines in the original STIG, and everything's virtual machines now. So you have to account for that. So, we've been very, very heavy into that space in the last couple of years.
We are doing quite a bit in the CMMC advisory space.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've been learning. It's been a bit of a fire hose, but it's sort of all the new, standards that government contractors and things need to comply with by, 2024 or something. But there's obviously a lot of work to be done, documenting your areas and actually being able to go validate them, test them, and be able to show that you're meeting the standards, not just having a checkbox, but
oh yeah.
So yeah, we're doing more of the helping people kind of figure out what they need to do and helping them fix it. We're not doing there's a whole audit piece. Mm-hmm. We don't do the audit piece, but
well, you need to keep that separate, right?
Yeah,
because that has to that's one of the core values of that stuff is you got to keep your auditing process and your auditing teams completely separate from your
hey, we did the work and then we audit it, everything's good. Yeah.
it's like a self-signed certificate. Sure, that can be a thing, but
yeah. So anyway, yeah, but so we do some work in that space, but it's definitely a growing area.
Have you guys found it interesting? I mean, it is. There is the question of there is the productivity question, right? Like security is absolutely necessary; it's absolutely required, but it is in and of itself not necessarily a source of growth and productivity.
Well, I think there's been a massive shift there where security teams are having to actually work on the solution. They don't just get to.
So they're integrated from the start. That's good.
That's most of our clients. I mean, the security teams are driving a lot of they're like in the driver's seat just along with some of the services teams, making sure that it's going to work for their internal employees or their business or whatever it is. They're not just sort of like going, hey, sort of finding a bunch of issues with what the IT team is doing, but they're actually having to be like fully integrated, working on it, making it work, which is nice. I mean,
that's really good. If you have someone doing that from the ground up at the beginning, it is way easier to get it done right.
Yep. And I think it's a lot less painful for everybody. What's going on with I know when we sort of talked before we had the this thing set up, you had mentioned Red Hat and IBM and all of that. I'm curious what you're seeing in that space. It
has been very interesting seeing what's happened with the world of Linux and the world of open source before and after that merger, in my opinion. And again, this is all just my opinion. So, heaping teaspoons of salt from everybody. But you see, I think one of the first things you see is there is a extension of the Red Hat mentality and management into IBM, which I think is a good thing. IBM's a remarkable organization in terms of its ability to reinvent itself every generation or so. It's just the fact that they can pull it off is a pretty surprising thing when you consider the ups and downs that company's had over the course of its history.
Yeah.
And now I think Jim Whitehurst is in line to potentially be the next CEO of IBM, which, I mean, would anyone have bet on that?
That's
10 years ago? Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. And it's also, I think, a great move. I think that is a
president right now, or
he's the president right now, I believe. I believe so. I think that was recently announced. I think it was this year, maybe. But you also see, I don't know how many customers you have on CentOS, but we have a lot. And they announced that CentOS 8 is going to be the last feature for feature free open source rebuild of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription. And after that, CentOS will continue to exist, but they're going to something called CentOS Stream, which is going to be the development branch of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So for enterprises that have policy mandates that they cannot run development branches, which many of them do, running on CentOS will no longer be valid for what they do. And now they have to reevaluate, are we buying a Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription? And there's, lots of announcements of organizations that are looking at doing a rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux feature for feature, independent of CentOS. I think Rocket Linux was announced or something like that. I have no opinion on this per se, but I do not think that Red Hat, independent of IBM, would have done a move that was so easily interpreted as anti the open source philosophy, as this has been interpreted. We've got some customers who are talking to us about looking at Debian and Ubuntu now because of the lack of CentOS being a enterprise class rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux feature for feature that does not require a subscription.
Right. Well, I would imagine tons of companies migrated to that free version, and now they're going to be looking for the next thing.
So yes, my experience with this, and again, this is, all my own experience, though a lot of other people have different experiences, but my own experience of this is not that a lot of companies migrated from like Red Hat Enterprise Linux to CentOS. They were using CentOS as the proving ground and proof of concept things for things they'd later move to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I don't think it really was a significant drain on potential Red Hat Enterprise Linux revenue. I don't. I see a lot of sites were using it for proof of concepts, and then when it would go, enterprise wide and deep, they'd roll it on Red Hat Enterprise Linux for all of the reasons there. Were there some sites that moved off of Red Hat Enterprise Linux to CentOS? Sure. Were they like major institutional and major organizations? In my experience, no. But this is my opinion. I could be wrong.
Well, Jeff, you have any opinion on Linux? What's your
I was just thinking about like containers and stuff, because I think that's one of the benefits of containers is you sort of can like you can stuff all of your app and everything into a little bundle, and then not really care about the OS you're running on. So,
but do you know about UBI?
No, I don't. Please,
yeah. So this is where things get interesting, right? Because the one of the things that Red Hat had to figure out in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, is you'd have a lot of sites who would have X subscription for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and then they'd have 10 to 12X deployed in de facto servers, because inside of each container would be another instance.
Okay.
Right. And these containers were very ephemeral. They were stateless. They'd come up and down. So they had to figure out, well, what does that imply for our licensing? And so what they did, or forgive me, license is a bad word, our subscription service. So what they wound up doing, and again, this is my interpretation of it, is they rolled out this thing called UBI, Universal Basic Instance, which is essentially a pared down version of Linux, of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, that will universally be applicable for and licensed for inside of a container. You can run it however you want, however much you want, but it is pared down. It does not have all of the packages that comes with standard Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And they also split it into, there's Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and there's Red Hat Enterprise Linux EPEL, which I think is extended license or extended packaging or something like that, which has a whole bunch of other packages rolled in for enhancing features. And there are certain things you need. For example, I think there's if I'm remembering this correctly, the PostGIS extension for Postgres, which is what a lot of geospatial sites use. You have to have this EPEL package installed in order to make parts of that run. Well, none of that is necessarily available inside of the standard UBI build of Linux that's available inside the containers anymore. So it provides, so what packages are included where and why beyond just the Linux kernel is a very fraught area for the Kubernetes and container space, purely from a supportability standpoint. You know, what do you have the rights to support? What do you have the rights to ask for, the entitlement to ask for support on, given how you're running your infrastructure?
You practically have to have a law degree, it seems like, for that.
So this is the problem, right? You're not supposed to, open source, you're not supposed to have to think about any of this stuff. And, you know, we here at Crunchy Data work extremely hard so our customers don't have to think about this stuff.
Evan, I cut you off, but we.
I'm sorry.
No. Don't apologize. But we're going to have to do this again because we're all out of time. I mean,
oh no,
yeah, we are. Our sponsors. We have to go take care of our sponsors. So,
Paul, thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you, Evan. It was great to see you again. I can't believe it's been a year. We'll make sure we don't wait a year again. And,
okay.
And we might have our act together next time when we.
All right. Well, drive safely in the van, guys. Have a great one.
Thanks a lot, Evan. Have a good day.
Take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.